that every single browser has it implemented, and there's vendor-specific tags for every single one of them. A lot of browsers, I would even venture to say most browsers, do now support just simply transform, and that is, well, that's kind of cool. And that is what I'm going to use here because it will work. Keep in mind, however, that if you just use transform, older browsers may complain. So just kind of keep that in mind. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to hit my colon, and you'll notice that there's all of the different transformations that I can set up here. And you're going to notice on here that there are a few that I didn't actually get in and mention, in particular in the land of 3D. So if you actually want to flip things in a third dimension, you can do that. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about images, you know, and kind of dealing with images. One very big thing that you can do is use SVG graphics, the scalable vector. And so you can actually just go in and declaratively say, hey, this is how I want things. And so by using these little transformations, you can draw the flat surface and then flip that and move that backwards and forwards and so forth, all on that third dimensional plane. So you can really get pretty advanced with the different transformations that are available to you. In my case, though, I'm going to go ahead and say translate, and that's going to give me the ability to move this from the left and from the top. So I'm going to say 200 pixels and 200 pixels, and then I'm going to add in a resize, scale rather. There we go. And let's go ahead and scale this. Now the scale is going to be a number-based percentage. So if you want to double it in size, that means you're going to use the number 2 to scale that. And you can actually scale on both the X and the Y axis. And let me actually move this kind of a little bit more center here. So I'm just going to say 400 and 400. There we go. Okay. So let's go in and fire this up. Oh, it would help if I set a background color on that. Otherwise, we're just going to wind up with a white box and a white background. Background, color, and blue. There we go. And
okay.
There we go. All right. No comma. That was where my mistake was. So now what you're going to notice is that it has been moved down, moved over, and you're going to notice that it's been resized. Cool. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. A lot of you are probably thinking, okay, that's fine and all, but I don't get it. Why in the world am I going to want to just hard code this into a style and just have it be resized? Well, the first big reason is if you were using media queries. So that way, if I do need to resize something for a media query, that allows me to very easily do that. In fact, here, let's just kind of do this real quick here, is I'm going to add in my media, and I'm going to say min width colon 500 pixels. There we go. And then let's go in and set that up inside of resize me. So resize me. Boom. And boop, and boop, boop. All right. Now, there is my little resize for my min width. So as a result, when it's small, you'll notice small, and then when we get up to big, now you're going to notice that it's bigger. So that's the first big reason why you might decide to use that. The second reason that you might decide to go in and use those little translates is this can oftentimes be an easier way to resize things than trying to do everything with JavaScript. So what I can do is combine this with a bit of JavaScript and then just simply set that style property and add in the transform that way. And I'm actually going to get to that at the very end. I know we haven't done any JavaScript, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least show off a little bit of JavaScript, in particular with jQuery, because so often when you're talking about different jQuery extensions, the way that they're making their magic happen is just by adding and removing classes. So it would be nice to show off kind of how that's done and do that with a little bit of resizing. So we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Okay. Now, That's how we can go in and resize something and move something. How about making something happen over time? So when I go in and I mouse over something, rather than it just instantly resizing or instantly changing the background color, how about a little bit of easing into it and a little bit of easing out? And it's funny, and I really should go track down this study again. I read this years ago, that what they did was they took the exact same application. So it did the exact same thing, and it had the exact same bugs. But they changed the UI on one of them. So one of them was a very simplistic UI, and then the other one was a very nice, rich UI. And then they gave them to different users, and they asked them to kind of report their overall feelings and bugs and so forth. And what they found was people reported a lot more bugs on the lesser UI than they did on the fancier UI. Because if you see a fancier UI, you're going to look at that and you're going to go, oh, okay, well, they've obviously spent a lot of time with this. So, that little bug that just came up, that must be me. I must have done something wrong there. And I know it sounds sort of silly, but it's true that, perception is reality. How your users perceive your site, perceive your application is a very important component to the success of it. So those little touches do go a long way, and CSS makes it so easy to add all of those in, and it's going to be done by utilizing transitions. So let's talk about how to add in a transition. Well, what you're going to notice is that if I want to transition, if I want to add on that bit of animation, all that I really need to do is just simply say, hey, I want to add a transition to that property, and I want it to take that long. That's it. So I can still go in and set the exact same key value property. So I can still say background color : yellow, or I can still say size : and then whatever it is. So I can still go in and do all of that just like I would with normal CSS. And then I just come down here and I say, all right, well, I want to apply that transition to that size property, or to that color property, or whatever else it is that it might be. And then on the duration, this is just simply how long I want it to take. That's really it. Now, the delay allows you to just incorporate a little bit of a delay. Just hold off before you go in and make that little change. And then finally, last but not least, is the timing function. And that's going to impact how it's going to kind of start, go in the middle, and then finish. So if I choose linear, it's going to go that same speed throughout. If I go ease, it's going to go slow to start, faster in the middle, and then slow to end. And then if I go ease out or ease in, it's going to just go slower at the end or at the beginning, respectively. Now, those are the four options that you're typically going to go for. If you're really feeling like you want a lot more control, you can actually go in and explicitly code how you want things to take place. Again, I've got better things to do with my time. Maybe that is something that you want to go in and do. I generally find that the built-in options actually work just fine for me. Okay, so with that, let's go in and take a look at how we could take advantage of that. And so let's come back to our article here. And on the hover, let's go in and set my background color. And I'm going to set this to be yellow. I'm going to start with yellow and just kind of see how I like it. There we go. All right. Yeah, yellow will work. Okay. And I am going to make this a little bit bigger. Zoom, 150. There we go. Okay. So I like my little yellow. But you'll notice that the moment I put my mouse over it, it's just boom, now it's yellow and that's it. So I would like a little bit of an ease into that. So here's all I have to do. This is it. No JavaScript required. Is I just sneak down here and I just simply say transition. Now again, you are going to notice it's a code snippet, and you are going to notice again when I go tab that it's going to add in for every single browser there. So I've got all of those really with the exception of Internet Explorer. I'm going to make my life easier, and I'm just going to go with transition, which again will work on most browsers, but if you are wanting full support, you should go with with all the rest of them. I don't think we need to see the same property 5 times though. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back in, and I'm going to say transition, and I'm going to say transition property. Let's start here, and I'm just going to say color or background color. There we go. Perfect. So now I'm saying I want to transition on background color. So the underline will still appear right away. My background color is the one that's now going to have the animation applied to it. If I also want an underline, then I could also go in and say underline as well. In my case, though, I just want background color. All right. And now let's go in and say transition duration. And let's say, I don't know, about 200 milliseconds. That'll probably work.
Yeah, that's a little fast, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
You like 500?
That sounds good. Half a second. I could see that. I have really slow reaction time, so I like the longer delays.
Okay, perfect. And let's also add in a little bit of a transition delay. And I'm just going to set that to be 10 milliseconds. And really, all that I'm looking to do there, it's so funny, my brain is just hard-coded. I'm in CSS, I typed in a number, it must be pixels, yes. So in any event, what that's really there for is that way if somebody's just simply moving their mouse around, that it's not always going to do that. Because if somebody's just going like this, there's no reason for me to get all fancy with the animations there.
Oh, you don't want it to create a nice little rainbow?
I suppose you could. All right, so we'll add that in, and then last but not least is going to be our timing function, and let's just go in with an ease in. There we go. Cool. So now I hit save. I come back over here. I hit refresh. Ooh.
Do it again. Yeah. Good transition.
Yeah. Now, I am going to make this obnoxiously long here. I'm going to make this 5 seconds. And the reason that I want to do that is just because it's going to work a little bit better for demo purposes. And you'll notice that slowly but surely, it is in fact coming into yellow. All right. I would probably not recommend going 5 seconds there. Now, here's the problem that I have, is you're going to notice that if I just pull the mouse away, it goes right back to a white background again. And if you're anything like me, and I know I am, that sort of leaves a little bit of a hollow feeling there because we had this really nice animation coming in. It'd be nice if we had that animation going back out again. This is the only slightly bad part, I guess, is you are going to notice I'm just going to need to take this, copy, and then just paste that back into there. So let's just go in, let's paste that back in, and you know, on the transition out, we should probably go the other direction, which is to say that we should probably go slower on the out. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to say out. So now I'm going to save that, and I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to hit refresh. And now what you're going to notice is I put my mouse back over, it's slowly going to go into yellow, and then I pull the mouse away, and you're going to notice that it's going to slowly go back to white. And what I really love about this is if I do this, so I put my mouse over, it's coming yellow, 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 and I pull my mouse away, so it didn't get to full yellow, you'll notice that it just picks up right where it was, and then starts going back down again. Cool.
Very cool.
Now, I copied and pasted. Pop quiz. Forgot to warn you there was going to be a pop quiz. CSS stands for what again?
Cascading style sheets.
Cascading style sheets. So these properties cascade. So it's right there in the name, cascade. So an anchor tag is also an anchor hover tag, right?
Yes.
Cool. So that would mean that if I took away that, and that should inherit from up here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go ahead, let's hit save, let's come back over here, hit refresh, and now you're going to notice, sure enough, it's coming in, and you'll notice that when I take my mouse away, it's also going out. because the only thing that was different about how I wanted to do that fade in and fade out was just simply what I wanted to have happen at the end and at the beginning for my regular and for my hover respectively. So I just changed that one property and I let the other ones inherit. So at the end of the day, this is still just CSS.
That's great. There's a question, and I think it's a pretty good one. What happens, or can you set different transitions for the same element, like different transition properties?
Absolutely. Yeah, so what you could also do is, let's say that I also went with, I'm trying to think of something else.
I think the underline was a good one.
Yeah, okay. So let's go with text decoration. There we go. So you'll notice that I could actually add in text decoration as well. So let me go in, save that. Let's go ahead, hit refresh. And yeah, unfortunately, I don't get a transition on underline. What do I want to do?
Text color or font color?
Yeah, there we go. Sure, we'll just go with color. So let's come down here, color, colon, and let's go with black. And there we go. Let's go with black, color. Cool. Okay, that'll work. Now let's come back over here. Let me hit refresh. And now what you're going to notice is that, again, over that 5 seconds, it's now going to fade from blue to black, and then you'll notice back again. So you can add in multiple. What I would also say is you can set different values for the duration, for the delay, and for the timing function as well. So if I want the color to maybe be a bit faster, so let's say that I want that to be maybe at 200 milliseconds. So I want that to be real fast. And I'm going to do this with red, just because I think that's going to pop a little bit better here. Then I could go in and set my 2 different sizes. So that 500 milliseconds is going to be for the background color. That 200 milliseconds is going to be for the foreground color or color. Let me go in, hit refresh, and now you're going to notice that it's basically instant. Whoa, no, it's not applying my animation.
There.
Well, no, it's not giving me the different values. Why are you not giving me the different values? I might need a vendor tag on that, because it is possible. It is possible for me to go in and set those different speeds. It might just be that I need a different vendor tag. Yeah, because it's just ignoring it if I do it that way. But in any event, you can go in and apply that to multiple properties, which was really the question there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's kind of keep on keeping on here. And let me bring up another little example that I was kind of building in the background here. Kind of a simple little form. So please register. And there's our little name, our little email, and then our little submit button down at the very bottom. And that's right now a div tag. I want that to be like a button.
Yes.
So I want to not make the text selectable. I also want to make it so that when you click on it, that it will resize. So maybe kind of condense down just a little bit like you've actually clicked on it. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be nifty.
That would be nifty. Fantastic. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off by getting rid of the text selection capabilities. So if I, inside of my demo button, just type in the word select, you'll notice that there is a user select here. So I can say user select, and then inside of here, I can say none. Come back over here, hit refresh, and now what you're going to notice is I need my browser specific user select. There we go, and I want none. There we go. Okay, hit refresh. And now you'll notice I'm trying to select, and I can't. That was cool.
Yeah.
Very easy. Now, the other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to get rid of that little bar cursor there, and I'd like to change the cursor to be, maybe the crosshair, because it's a button, so you're, focused in on it. It's going to be a crosshair. That's what I'm going to go with. All right. In any event, let's come back over here, hit refresh, and now what you're going to notice is I get that neat little crosshair, so I can go in and try to click on that. Now, you'll notice I was able to do all of that with CSS. And again, Moral of the entire day is if we can do it with CSS, let's do it with CSS. CSS, unfortunately, doesn't have things like mouse down or mouse up states. So I'm going to need a little bit of JavaScript. But one of the great things about JavaScript, and in particular I want to focus in on jQuery, because jQuery makes this very easy, is the ability for me to add and remove classes. And the vast majority of all the different animations and so forth that you see are all based on the addition and removal of classes. That's really it. So let's just create a class, and let's just call it shrink. And let's just go in and say transform. And I'm going to say, in my case, scale. And let's say 0.5 and 0.5. And I'm making that kind of really small there, but
yeah.
I'm just trying to, prove the point. And then let's go in and say dot grow, and let's go in and say transform, and let's say none. So we'll just get rid of the transformation. And now what I want to do is I just want to, for right now, on my little button, let's start it out with class equals, I'm going to call it default, just because I think that's a better name in the long run, rather than grow, because I'm just setting it back to the default, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Setting it to grow would make me think that it's growing.
Yeah, it's going to get bigger, not that it's just going back to the original size. Okay, so now let's sneak down here and let's add in a little bit of jQuery here. There we go. And for those of you not familiar with jQuery, we actually, again, have an MVA on jQuery. But what jQuery does is it makes it easier through JavaScript to do all of those different things that we sort of take for granted in typical development. So adding on things like click event handlers and so forth is very easy to do in Windows development, but it's not always as easy as one would hope in JavaScript. So jQuery makes it easier to do things like that. It also does a lot more, but I think that's the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is to simply say script. I'm going to use the shortcut for onload. So once the document loads, it's going to run this function, and I'm going to go find my demo button. Why did I camel case that? And then I'm going to say, let's say mouse down. And then on mouse down, I'm going to add in a brand new function. And on that function, I'm just going to grab the button by doing this, dot, and then we'll just simply say toggle class. And let's go in and say default and toggle class. And then let's say shrink. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I honestly would do it that way normally, but I want to kind of make it a little bit more explicit, just kind of call it out here. So let's say remove class default. There we go. And then let's say $this, and let's say add class and shrink. There we go. And then let's also just do the opposite.
I think you might need the ID selector for demo button.
Ah, thank you. I always do that.
Yeah.
That is the #1 mistake that I wind up making inside of jQuery. And then I want mouse up. There we go. Okay. And cool. There we go. So I'm just swapping those classes. Okay. So now let's go in and hit save. Let's come back over here, hit refresh, and you're going to notice mouse down, it shrinks. Mouse up, it comes back.
Very nice.
It is. Wouldn't it be nice if it eased into that and eased back out?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, fortunately, again, CSS, the C stands for
Cascading.
So I can set that property here on the button itself. So regardless of where it's going to get the transition properties applied, it will always work. So I'm just simply going to say transition duration, and let's go in and say maybe 500 milliseconds. let's say transition property, and that's going to be transform. Now, transform is just like any other CSS property. So I can use it in media queries, I can use it in classes, I can use it in IDs. Can I use it with transition properties? Yes, because it's just a CSS property. Cool. And then I could also set my transition timing function, and then let's just go with an ease, which is going to ease in and ease out both. Okay, so now let's come back over here, let's hit refresh, and now what you're going to notice, ooh, and then release. Ooh.
Very nice.
Yeah, so just like that, I was able to build all of that, and I really should add in a mouse out as well, so that way if somebody does that and then pulls their mouse away, it will come back out, but that's okay. You start to see where all of this is going. And what I want to highlight about all of this is the fact that you might look at this and you might think, well, wait a minute. I'm going to add in some interactivity based on a click, based on a mouse down and a mouse up. And so you might be thinking, okay, that should then be in JavaScript, because after all, that's typically where things like this go, right? It goes in JavaScript. Well, here's the thing. What are we trying to do? What's the actual end goal? Well, the end goal, the effect that that mouse down and mouse up is going to have is going to be on the display. It's going to be on the style. And what should be in charge of style?
The style sheets, the CSS.
There you go, the style sheet, the CSS. So you'll notice that we built everything else into CSS. So how big should it be? How small should it be? All of that was built inside of CSS. And where that also becomes very important is when we start talking about things like, once again, media queries and different types of devices. So I might decide for a desktop that that type of a shrink behavior is exactly what I want, but I might decide for a mobile device that maybe that's not what I want. So maybe what I do, and I'm not going to go in and do the full thing here, I just want you to kind of see the point that maybe what I do is I say media, and I say max width, and let's say, oh, I don't know, 500 pixels, whatever. So let's go in and say that I did that. I really should get a colon into there. There we go. So let's say I go in and I do 500 pixels, then what I could do is I could say dot shrink, dot default, and then just completely turn off any transformations. And I can do that right there inside the style sheet. No logic required inside of JavaScript. And that again goes back to separation of concern. Let CSS worry about how things are going to be displayed. Let JavaScript worry about things like logic and wiring up the event handlers. So now, one little bit right there, no JavaScript required. This is now automatically going to disable that little animation on any smaller device. So very simple for me to go in and add that in.
That's great. Yeah, very useful.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. All right, in the event. So here's what we saw in that module. What we saw in that module is, once again, how we can take CSS and really kick things up. And CSS is all about handling the display. This is what we want to use. So hopefully the biggest thing that you got out of this was not a desire to go running for JavaScript every time that you want to add in something cool. Let the CSS handle the display for you. Let the HTML handle the semantic structure, and let JavaScript do your business logic. All right. What do you say we take 10 minutes, come back, and not talk about CSS? I mean, we'll talk about CSS, but let's talk about preprocessors and how hopefully we can try to clean up our CSS a bit, because obviously it can get very big.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take 10, and we'll see you guys back here then. All right, right, well, for the last time today, welcome back. Alongside Helen Zhang, I'm Christopher Harrison, and this is Adding Style with CSS. Now, we've spent a lot of time talking about CSS, obviously. See, it's not just a clever title after all. But one of the things that we've seen, even though a lot of our CSS files have been relatively straightforward, is that those files can get really big. And trying to identify the different elements and all those different properties, that can become very verbose and sometimes very